Well, here we are. Make a few adjustments here. Sorry we weren't able to connect on the other platform. We'll see if this is better. I certainly hope it is. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just start over. How does that sound? That's 1332. When we declare unto you glad tidings. Who else declared glad tidings? Why, the angel, didn't he? When he came to the shepherds, the angel of the Lord, the glory of the Lord shone round about. He brought them glad tidings of great joy. What? That unto you this day is born in the city of David, Christ the Lord. Isn't that interesting? Now the messengers that were sent from the church at Antioch are declaring unto these people in the synagogue good tidings. How good is it? Well, I'm going to tell you this, that to most people, they don't care. It's not really good to them. What? It's not really good to them? No, they don't care one way or the other. Most people that walk on the face of this earth today, in their minds and in their hearts, they don't need Jesus. Don't need him at all. It's a nice story. Christmas time. It's a nice story at Easter. Well, they might go through and read the Sermon on the Mount or some other portion of his teaching and say, oh, what a great teacher that was. But that's not glad tidings to them. Why not? Because even though if you ask the majority of people, are you a sinner? They would tell you yes. But they have no idea. No idea. They're ignorant as a stump over what that really means. They don't realize that they cannot deliver themselves from sin, any sin, and the penalty due to that sin. So no, it's not glad tidings. It's just a nice story to them. See what Paul had gone through before? First, he tells them there's a word of salvation that was sent. Who's it sent to? Children of Abraham. Whoever among you feareth God. It's glad tidings to them too. And it's the only one, children of Abraham. Why, every one of them Jews in that synagogue was children of Abraham. Maybe after the flesh. But were they the true children of Abraham? Look with me for just a minute. In the book of Romans, where Paul talks about Abraham. What shall we say, then, that Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, hath found? For if Abraham were justified by works, he hath whereof the glory, but not before God. For what saith the Scripture? Abraham believed God, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. Skip on down here, verse 9. Cometh this blessing then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? What's Paul saying? He's saying, is this just for Jews, or is it for Gentiles too? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. So, then he asked the important question. How was it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? In other words, had Abraham been given the sign and the seal of circumcision, when it says, Abraham believed God and it was counted to him for righteousness, when he was reckoned righteous, Abraham wasn't righteous, but he was counted that way. Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had. Listen to this. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had, yet being uncircumcised. In other words, he got the sign of that which he already possessed. He possessed faith. He didn't need to be circumcised to get faith. So that was the error of the Judaizers that Paul deals with in Acts and particularly in Galatians, that say, well, you have to be circumcised to keep the law of Moses in order to be saved. And those two things go together, brethren, circumcision and law keeping. Abraham received circumcision as a sign, a seal of the righteousness, which he had before he got the seal or the sign. Why? Keep reading here in verse 11, Romans chapter 4, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised. See there? That Abraham might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. See, he's saying they were reckoned righteous by imputation. Excuse me. Hey. Oh, I'm sorry. what do we do? That's what we'll do. Absolutely. I don't know that I can either, Sugar. She's a little sweet sometimes. Well, we're not going to do anything for 2 months, so. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's what we'll do. Okay. Yeah. No, I understand. Okay, I will. I'll tell them. Okay? All right, bye-bye. Hi, Tammy. This is Robert Mackey. I'm calling about a couple of cats for Elizabeth Krogan that are in there to be spayed today, neutered. And Jay called about the smaller of the two. And we've decided to wait 2 months and have her tested again. No problem. Hey Jay, this is Robert Lackey. On the little baby cat, we're going to wait the 2 months and see what happens, okay? No, we're going to hold off on that too. All right? Of course. All right. Bye-bye. I apologize, brethren. That was a call that I needed to take. So, we're talking about Abraham. Circumcision. We're talking about the promise. All right. He received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of faith which he had, yet being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. Abraham's faith was counted to him for righteousness. Righteousness was imputed to him, not because he ginned up enough faith within himself to get righteous, not because he's walking in sanctification or anything like that, but that righteousness was imputed to him when faith was given to him. And that righteousness might be imputed unto them also, and the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father Abraham, which he had, being yet uncircumcised. For the promise, there's that promise, that he should be heir of the world, was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. For if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect. Notice nowhere in here is Paul talking about Abraham fulfilling a covenant, but it's all a promise. Acts 4 is very plain. Here he talks about it as well in Romans 4, Acts 13. That this is what? The promise which was made to the fathers, plural. And you think about that. The promise was made in the garden. The promise was made to Abraham. The promise was made to Isaac and Jacob, even Moses. Moses told him, the Lord's going to raise up a prophet for you, like unto me. He's going to give you all these things, give you the promised land, all this. God fulfilled the same in that he raised up Jesus. As it is also written in the second Psalm, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Look at the context of the second Psalm. Why do the nations rage and the people meditate on vain things? I'm reading from translation of the Septuagint. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against his anointed, his Christ, saying, let us break their bands and cast away their yokes from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh at them. The Lord shall mock them. He shall speak to them in his wrath and trouble them in his anger. But I was established as king by him over his holy hill of Zion. I was established as king by him over his holy hill of Zion. Now we know this isn't talking about natural things, because Zion's hill, after the flesh, couldn't be called holy, could it? Except for the fact that the Lord was there. In fact, let's read this whole verse 6. But I was established as king by him over his holy hill of Zion, declaring the Lord's decree. This king was there to declare the decree that God had made. Now, when was God in the habit of decree making? I'll tell you when. Before the foundation of the world. It's exactly when. And now this decree that went forth is to be declared. The Lord said unto me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. And here Paul, in the book of Acts, chapter 13, tells us quite plainly, that God fulfilled this for us, their children, in that he raised up Jesus, as it is written in the second Psalm. You are my son. Today I have begotten you. He's the first begotten from the dead, the scripture tells us. The psalm goes on. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall shepherd them with an iron staff. You shall shatter them like a potter's vessel. You shall shepherd them with an iron staff. Well, now listen, if we'd have kept reading over here, pardon me, in the 12th chapter of Revelation, where we read a few minutes ago, we did read it, excuse me, verse 5. And the woman bore a male child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. The child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, for she has a place prepared to God. That's right. So we can see here that the second Psalm, Revelation 12, is talking about the same one. Talking about Jesus. That's who was raised from the dead, isn't it? That's who Paul's talking about. That's where the promise finds its fulfillment. Law, prophets, promises are all in him what? Yea and amen. Because in him they're all fulfilled. He is the embodiment of the promise to the fathers. All of these things that the first century Jew interpreted naturally and said, oh, this is going to be to give it a fleshly tone, so to speak, as it were. Excuse me. Gave it, well, how shall we say? Gave it an interpretation, gave it a fulfillment, the fulfillment for which they were looking. That's all according to the flesh. They saw the promises as fleshly. The command was do and live with natural life. Therefore, the promise was a natural promise. They weren't given by God to see the spirituality of either law, prophecy, or promise. All they could see was the natural because they looked at it with natural eyes and they interpreted it with a natural mind. And brethren, this may sound harsh, but I believe it as much as I believe anything, that the dispensationalist and those who look for a fulfillment, a natural fulfillment of the promises today, bear the same spirit as the Pharisees and the first century scribes and the Jewish leaders. They have no idea of the spirituality of the law, the prophet, or the promise because it's not been given to them. Their eyes are blinded. God has sent them strong delusion that they believe a lie, even to the contradicting of the New Testament. That's harsh language, isn't it? It's the truth. When anyone tells you someone has a right to enter into the kingdom of heaven by virtue of their descendancy from Abraham, then they give lie to what John wrote in the first chapter of his gospel when he said these were born not of blood nor the will of, these were born not of the will of the flesh nor the will of man nor of blood. He just cut Abraham's natural seed out completely, didn't he? I mean, cut them out. Boom, sip, snip, gone. So, Abraham's got a seed, though, doesn't he? They see the promise for what it is. Not that we should inherit a few acres of ground over there in the Middle East, but rather that we inherit our spiritual Canaan, that we inherit a greater kingdom, and our heirship is based upon being an heir of God and a joint heir of Jesus Christ in particular, not got anything to do with our natural lineage. Have you ever thought of the resurrection of Christ as a beginning? He did it. Think about it. I'm not going to elucidate on that or elaborate or say anything else. Just think about it, consider it, meditate on it as God gives you a mind and a heart to do so. And that he raised him from the dead, this is verse 34. This is verse 34 of Acts 13. And that he raised him from the dead, no more to return to corruption. He has spoken thus: I will give you the sure mercies of David. I will give thee the sure mercies of David. Listen, that's a quote from Isaiah. I want to read the context of that quote. Again, I'm going to read it. I think I'll read this from Masoretic, from translation, King James translation of the Masoretic Hebrew. Then I'll read it from the Septuagint. Isaiah 55. Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters. And he that hath no money, come ye and buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear, and come unto me. Hear, and your soul shall live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. David said, though my house, it be not so with my house, he's made with me an everlasting covenant. And here Isaiah echoes that, doesn't he? Isaiah echoes that. I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. A lot of times I think about old David. I think about him because, like Elijah, he was a man of like passions as we. Not above having somebody put into the heat of the battle that he might be killed so that David could take his wife, with whom he'd already committed adultery, numbered the people of Israel against the command of God. What am I saying? David was a sinner to whom God showed mercy. And he made with him this covenant. He should not want a man to sit upon his throne. Well, that's the man that we're talking about now. When he raised him up from the dead. When he raised him up, wherefore he saith in another psalm, thou shalt not suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Jesus' body did not decay. And then he says this, for David, after he had served his own generation by the will of God, fell on sleep, and was laid unto his fathers, and saw corruption. We're saying, we ain't talking about David, but he whom God raised again saw no corruption. Saw no corruption. We have the promise of Abraham. We have the covenant of David. We're the possessors of both of them. We're the house of David. We're the children of Abraham, if we're Christ. Well, brethren, I've kind of scattershot on two platforms today. If God wills, on Friday, we will take up the end of the life of Robert Robinson. And Monday, we'll return here to the 13th chapter of Acts. Tell you what, Facebook was acting so crazy. We may just do that on YouTube. I'm not opposed to it. Let me know what you think. If you have any objection to it, I'll publicize it. Don't worry. I'll send out an email tomorrow. If y'all can let me know. Does anyone have any questions or comments? How about it? Does anyone have any questions or comments? Anything we need to talk about? Anything we need to say? I certainly apologize for all the trouble that has gone through on the broadcast today. It seems that Facebook just didn't want to do right. We haven't been cut off here on YouTube at all, and yet Facebook was there cutting us off every. I thought I was doing something. I thought I was accidentally clicking it so it would go off, but obviously that wasn't the case. So, does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, you can ask any questions. You can do it in the YouTube chat window. I would love to see more comments, more questions. One of the things I hope that we can look at as we go through these broadcasts is, and we kind of started that when we looked at John Smith's differences of the churches of the separation. But I want to look in 1 Corinthians and in the book of Acts about how worship was conducted, how church meetings were conducted in the New Testament. You know, there's not a lot of information there, but what there is telling. At least in my opinion, it's telling. And we'll see what we can come up with. I will say this, I think it was a lot more participatory than we have today in most instances. Thank you, Brother Davis. YouTube's fine. If YouTube's fine for you, I hope it's fine for everybody else, because I think that may be our so-called way out. Participatory, or worship was more participatory than most of us are used to experiencing. So we're going to talk about that, Lord willing, as we go through some of this stuff. Maybe even after we finish the 13th chapter of Acts, although there are a couple of things I do want to look at as well. I don't know about y'all, but my mind gets to going on these subjects, and I get to thinking, Brother Perupchuk's watching on the TV, so it's hard to post. Yeah. All right. You like the idea of going on YouTube. Brother Davis, I know Brother Santa Maria has no problem with it. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with it, particularly if they'd been on earlier today and see how often YouTube or Facebook was cutting us off. So, well, it's been a trying morning trying to get this out. Yeah, I could do that too. That would work. I don't know how it would work out, in a now I'm a TV evangelist. Brother Propchek used to always say that Gene Scott reminded him of me. So I guess with my white beard now, I need to go ahead and just put a hat on. And even though I've quit smoking, I guess I ought to go grab one of my pipes or a cigar or something like that. Get me a big easy chair and a table so I could have a side table. Then I could even really look like one, huh? Oh, brother, we're silly. I hope it's a good silly, though. All right. Let us dismiss. Y'all can consider yourself dismissed. And Lord willing, we'll see you Friday morning. Probably here. But I'll send out an email so you know for sure. I thank you.